Hello, I'm Archie Luxury and welcome to the program. Sydney, the most beautiful city of Australia. And look at these pics here. I snapped whilst flying in with Qantas, and you can see the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Opera House in the background. Now, if that doesn't stir the heart of every Australian, I don't know what the fuck will. And Sydney itself is one of the greatest cities in Australia. And have a look here. We're going through, this is the Rocks area, the historic Rocks area, and look at this, beautiful trees, historic Sydney. And here we are in George Street here, and it's just superb. My good friends, Sydney Vintage Watches, Sydney, this is where they are, the Queen Victoria building. Have a look at this. And there's also very, very big maritime existence in Australia here, especially in Sydney, because of the harbour is so important. Luna Park, the Opera House, all these iconic Sydney things. And that coat hanger, the coat hanger is the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Paul Hogan started off as a painter on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And let's drive over the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And this is a wonderful bridge, opened in the 30s. And it's got cars and trains go across it. And it's just a modern day monument. I mean, when you fly into Sydney and you can see the Harbour Bridge, you know you are home. And what a wonderful sight indeed. Sydney Harbour. And you can't really see it from here. Unfortunately, they've got some big barriers here to stop you I think it's to stop people jumping over the end there because of the fucking the way house prices are in Sydney. I'd want to jump off the bridge too if I lived here. But it's a magnificent, look at the beautiful sky. There aren't many international cities without the smog and pollution. This is a high-end town, and Archie's proud to be an Australian. It's fantastic. Sydney, it's probably the greatest city. Melbourne is another city which I'm going to be visiting very soon. I'll be making a video on that very soon. I'm organising a Melbourne tour. I met fans in Sydney, and I'm very keen to meet fans in Melbourne. But Sydney, this is crossing the Harbour Bridge, and it's I just adore Sydney, and the Opera House, Luna Park. These are iconic Sydney things, and as well as high housing costs, high petrol. Sydney is just a iconic, wonderful city, and I adore it. And I gotta say, coming from Brisbane, I think the women are more attractive in Sydney. There's more beautiful fillies in Sydney than in anywhere in Australia. And taking a ferry in Sydney is just so iconic, and it's part of the way. And the Opera House, what an iconic building. And it's just wonderful to go on the harbour and see Sydney. And it has such wonderful things to see. And I'm very, very proud to be an Australian. And I love Sydney. And here's some photos here from Centre Point Tower. And there's my Patek, my beautiful 5107. And it's one of the greatest cities in the world. It's an international city. Brisbane's a bit small. But I gotta say, it rates up there. Sydney rates up there with London, with Bangkok, Singapore, Hong Kong, New York, and it's just one of the all-time fantastic cities. And I gotta say, I'm very proud to be an Aussie, and there's some fantastic brands of merchandise for sale in Sydney. Got all the top, upper luxury brands. They're on display in Sydney. It's all happening. It's all going crazy. And as an Aussie, I'm very proud to present Sydney to all you Americans and Europeans there. And I gotta say, the prices in Sydney will scare the shit out of most people. It's an expensive city to buy a small apartment in Sydney, if you want to live in a suburb, you're looking at, $600,000-$700,000 for a one-bedder, a two-bedder, up to $1 million. That's for a suburb, that's an address, a postcode. But if you move out, an hour from the city, you can pick up a townhouse 3-bedroom for about $600,000. It certainly ain't cheap in Sydney, that's for sure. But the wonderful part of Sydney is the city itself there. And here's the Pitt Street Mall. There's Centre Point Tower, the highest point in Sydney. Highest building, I should say. Highest tower, I should say. Here's the beautiful Strand Arcade. Absolute gorgeous. And I gotta say, Sydney has a buzz. It's a real happening city. Here's the classic Louis Vuitton store in George Street. What a beautiful store. It's a multi-leveled building with Vuitton's beautiful products. And I adore Sydney. Sydney is Archie's second home. And if I had the money, I'd move in here. But Jesus Christ, house prices, $1 million doesn't get you anything fabulous. $500,000 gets you a fucking closet. It's very, very expensive. Here's some wonderful photos here from over at Manly, looking back on Sydney, and what a beautiful sight. It's just absolutely, it's an international city of the world. I'm Archie Luxury, reporting on one of the all-time greats of the world, Sydney, Australia.